Hello and welcome to another episode of Is There More, the podcast. My name is Megan and I'm listening. Today, coming on for some insights about True Hinds episode. Last week, we have Jaxon J. Huffman, the co-creator of Dialog Life Skills, which is sponsoring this podcast. Dialog Life Skills is a tool for better relationships and improved mental health with your family, friends, coworkers, and followers. If you want to be one of 300 creators who learn how to dialogue for free, send a DM to @IsThereMoreWorld on Instagram. Thanks for listening. And there's two things I want to show you. The first thing will be about Dar, and then the second thing is just about what she said about you. So I'm going to show you both of them.
I was like, who else can I get on board with this project, who I know would get behind it and believe in it? And I heard Jaxon, and I was like, really? But I haven't talked to him in like months. And as soon as I reached out, it was as if we hadn't skipped a beat. And I think that has been the nature of our connection ever since the day we met. And that's one thing I can say about Jaxon. Like when he's investing in something or when he's reaching out to people to see the vision the way that he sees it, is bankable.
Whenever I met True, we definitely had a great connection. I just get her, right? I get her as a person, as a creator, as a mother, as a dreamer, and as a person who can actually execute on what I believe is some of the hardest things to do, pulling together a script and then being able to produce something where you're herding what I call stray cats, trying to get them all to get in a single file line and walk in the same direction, and everybody plays their part, get to the finish line, cross your fingers that it'll work, kind of thing. You want leaders like True to be in the mix for that, because she can pull that script off and she can actually execute on producing it.
Do you remember what it was like when she asked you to help her?
I actually do. I do. I was really busy at the time. I had my hands full at Creator House LA. As you know, it's a 2-property compound where Creator Houses was incubated, and then the front was full and the back was full. Upstairs was downstairs. The studio was full. It was wild. And out of nowhere, True just reaches out to me and says she had recently told me she had moved to Africa and that she needed to talk to me about something. And she thought, no pressure, but love to see if you can help me out with something. So I got on the line and she said very simply, this is what I'm making. And my first gut reaction was how courageous it was for her to move there. Then how courageous it was for her to create there. And then how courageous it was for her to reach back into America and ask somebody for help. I don't even remember if I told her yes. I just said, I'll think about it, and got on the phone and immediately just sent her the money.
That's cool of you. Well, she had really good things to say about you, so I'm going to show you one more clip that highlights similarly how you just spoke of her. She feels that from you.
I've had quite a few false starts in my career, like helping other people, and then it's like, all right, thanks, bye. And Jaxon, I remember when he messaged me on LinkedIn, he was like, I want to talk about your writing chops. And I was like, who are you? But it has been good ever since. Like through that partnership, I got to work with The Dream. He's in my catalog of producers that consistently gives me work and believes in my ability. He really does. He believes in my skill. He champions my skill and wants to make sure that my work and my talent land with the right person. I feel seen. I feel heard. He gets me. He knows what would be the right fit for my career, and I'm appreciative for that. There's something that he has in him that he's reaching for, like to pull out of himself, to define himself, and for people to really get him and understand him. And that thing he does for other people who may have otherwise been passed over or looked over, something of that nature.
Never heard that explained like that. But I think True is, there's something in me, my personal background, of my lifelong desire to understand where we're from, where a Black man like me in America is actually from in Africa. And then how I got to where I am, and my African ancestors have been important to me. My American ancestors have been important to me. My Native American ancestors have been important to me. But my own personal journey of just like really wish I'd had the opportunity to grow up with my mother, but that didn't happen. Really wish I'd had the opportunity to have a lifelong, strong relationship with my father. That didn't happen. Really wish I could have made my first marriage work, for instance, and that didn't. But relationships at the end of the day, the ones that don't work out, I used to have a bitter feeling about them, and I now have learned why those things happen. No one's really to blame, and that we're designed as human beings to polarize, especially if we don't have the skills to stay connected. And that there are 3 stages of a relationship. As you know, the romance phase, if you're in a romantic relationship, the power struggle is where relationships typically fall apart. And then if you can get through the power struggle, having true love or unconditional love, or just wondering about someone as opposed to judging them, is where you can have the ultimate level of connection with someone in your life, whether it's a family member, a friend, a coworker, or people in your community, your followers. So I think she just put her finger on something that I don't think many people have, which I think True is basically saying that we're all pretty wonderful people. And some of us just happen to be creators, and I resonate with a creator and a business person. Those are kind of communities I serve. And I do genuinely hope that I can help them have a less challenging journey of developing all that they are capable of being and showing it to the world and being so proud and happy about that. So yes, I think Truce sees that I'm trying to do that for other people and recognizes, because she is who she is, that that's ultimately what I've always desired for myself.
Wow.
But that's true. I didn't know she thought that. She never told me that, but I do appreciate that observation. Um, if we can all just really be much more empathetic towards each other, less judgmental, less critical. And I can't go without saying that for me, Dr. Helen Kelly Hunt and Dr. Harville Hendricks, that couple who has spent 80 combined years on a journey to discover everything possible that they could about relationships, package it up and teach others, having spent over a decade studying their work, and then 3.5, 4 years intimately working with them. It's helped me to understand that not only the people in my life, in my past, that hurt me weren't trying to hurt me, and that I wasn't trying to hurt other people either. Very simply was doing what human nature does when it's uneducated about how to have a good relationship.
At what point were you able to let go of that shame of feeling like you were trying to hurt people or people were trying to hurt you? Was that during the dialogue process or kind of before that?
There were definitely 2 moments, actually probably 3, if they were to look back on it. The first one was I was trying to save my marriage, and we saw Helen and Harville on Oprah, and I bought their book, Getting the Love You Want, and we were using it as a study guide for our relationship. And I hired a therapist wherever we went. Lane was shooting a movie or TV series in Vancouver. We would go with the family, and I'd find a local Imago therapist. And then finally, we were back in Los Angeles, and we were at our home, and the local therapist there, Bruce and Francine, put on a weekend retreat right up the street from Burbank in Pasadena. And so I, paid for the retreat for us to go for a weekend. And while I was there, we'd been together probably 14 years, 13 years at this point. But it was the first time anyone had shared with us that you're not doing anything to each other. You are both trying to solve an unmet need from your childhood. And that manifests in the way of it looks like what she's doing is directed towards you, what you're doing is directed towards her. But really, you're both trying to overcome part of your brain that stores information from your childhood. And it basically runs your life without you knowing. I remember asking Bruce and Francine in our one-on-one with them at the end of the retreat, why didn't we learn this stuff earlier in life? We probably wouldn't be a couple in crisis. And it was there that they told me, no, this is for when couples going through something, they come see us. So it's very normal what you guys are doing. I was like, well, it would be better if I learned this as a kid, I think. So fast forward, the second time, it kind of came up. He said, when I did finally meet 10 years later, Helen and Harville, and they were looking to give me the assignment of getting their work out of the clinic and into the real world. And I said to myself, this is my shot to ask them personally about this. And they looked at me and said, yeah, what you guys were going through is very normal for all couples. And you weren't actually trying to do anything to each other, and that you could have fought for each other's relationship if you had the tools to do it. And that's what we teach in Imago. So I asked them, can we teach this to young people? That will be my strategy on how to get your work out of the clinic and into the real world. It's the same question I asked 10 years prior to Bruce and Francine. And I did get Bruce and Francine and Helen and Harville in a conversation together, which I was really happy to do, because I was trying to recruit them to go get Bruce and Francine too, to join the movement of teaching dialogue to teens and young adults. So that was the second time. And then I would say the third time was when, I was complaining about my relationship with my father to my cousin, which is really like an aunt. She's that much older, she's a second distant cousin kind of thing. She's a brilliant woman by the name of Caroline. She passed away a few years ago. Before she passed, I used to drive from Los Angeles to San Diego to see her as often as I could. And I'd go to her house, so she was staying at, or to the facility that she checked herself into when she felt like she needed extra care. And at this one particular meeting, it was almost like she was anticipating there would be, at some point in our conversation, I would bring up my relationship. And when I turned that corner, she said, you know what? I've been waiting to ask you this. She goes, oh, you're struggling with your relationship with your dad and your grandfather. I get that you're named after them and you don't understand why, because they don't really get along. Your grandfather's never came and saw you or met your kids in your home, or your dad's never come either. And, all these things I would be complaining about. And she says, so I have a question for you. How hard is it for you to be a hardworking, legitimate Black man in America pursuing your dreams? And I was like, well, let me tell you. And I started just telling her, this and that. I got to be 1,000 times better, and I get 1,000 less resources. There's not even a glass ceiling anymore. There's something called the glass cliff. It may give you a little bit of money, but you're still on a glass cliff because you don't really have enough to be successful. All the stuff that I could complain about. And she says, that's pretty understandable that you would feel that way. Well, let me get some feedback on that. Well, I think that you are incredible and you have accomplished a lot, whether it's touring the world as a teenager and co-creating a group that sold hundreds of millions of dollars in sales and touring the world as a teenager. That's pretty freaking incredible. Or whether it's building technology companies and selling them, or building a venture studio and owning creator houses and partnering with the Marriott family, Stuart Marriott, and naming your kid after that, or partnering with the Hunt family and oil, 18 oil. That in the middle of all that, you've got a lot of great things that have been going on.
Yeah.
She says, but I can understand that your experience tells you that, it's been pretty hard. So then she says, yeah, but let me ask you this. How hard do you think it was for your dad to be that smart or that capable and not be able to pursue his dream or live up to his full potential? And I was like, as soon as she said it was like, whoa. I immediately realized maybe he's not doing something to me. He's literally just struggling with his own journey and how challenging has been for him. And then she proceeded to say, how hard do you think it was for your grandfather? And I realized that exponentially, it was increasingly harder as she rolled out those questions. And it made me realize in that moment that I should have more empathy for my father. I should have more empathy for my grandfather. And my cousin, Carolyn Buck, freed me that day because ultimately, by not carrying the weight of the anger or the sadness or the wish I had had a better relationship with them, it turned into motivation for me to value that they laid the groundwork for me to be able to do the things that I have actually accomplished. And if that's what they gave me, that's what they gave me. And I should 100% celebrate that more. And so that's what I do.
So there were 3 big moments. The first was the first time you hired the Imago therapist in your marriage, and they explained to you you're searching for your Imago, and you aren't trying to hurt each other, but you're trying to solve a trauma that you have from childhood. And then the next time was when you met Helen and Harville in person and got to pitch them your idea to teach teens and young adults how to dialogue before they became couples in crisis. And then the last time was when your cousin freed you by saying, how hard do you think it was for your dad to be a Black man in America? And how hard do you think it was for your grandfather to be a Black man in America? And if, they gave you the opportunities and the resources that you have to do all the things that you've done, but they gave you some trauma too, then that's what you have to work with. But they weren't ever trying to hurt you.
Yeah, they were just on their own journey.
Yeah. That's powerful.
And yes, you got that.
Did I get that?
Yeah, you got it.
Is there more to that?
There's definitely more to it. But, that was the answer to your question. So,
Okay.
thanks for listening.
Thanks for sharing that.